Hi guys, welcome to my channel. Arvan tells a story. Let's talk about Portugal. Officially, the Portuguese Republic is a country whose mainland is located on the Iberian Peninsula of southwestern Europe. And whose territory also included the Atlantic archipelagos of the Azores and Madeira. It features the westernmost point in continental Europe, and its Iberian portion is bordered to the west and south by the Atlantic Ocean, and to the north and east by Spain, the sole country to have a land border with Portugal. Its two archipelagos form two autonomous regions with their own regional governments. Lisbon is the capital and largest city in Portugal. Portugal is the oldest continuously existing nation-state on the Iberian Peninsula and one of the oldest in Europe, its territory having been continuously settled, invaded and pulled over since prehistoric times. It was inhabited by pre-Celtic and Celtic peoples who had contact with Phoenicians, Punic people and ancient Greek traders. It was ruled by the Romans, followed by the invasions of the Suebi and Visigothi, Germanic peoples, in turn followed by the Moors who eventually were expelled. Portugal as a country was established during the early Christian Reconquista, founded in 868. The country of Portugal came prominence after the Battle of São Mamede. The Kingdom of Portugal was later proclaimed following the Battle of Alric, and independence from Leon was recognized by the Treaty of Zamora. In the 15th and 16th centuries, Portugal established the first global maritime and commercial empire, becoming one of the world's major economy, political and military powers. During this period, today referred to as the Age of Discovery, Portuguese explorers pioneered maritime exploration with the discovery of what would become Brazil. During this time, Portugal monopolized the spice trade, divided the world into hemispheres of dominion with Castile, and the empire expanded with military campaigns in Asia. By the 18th century, however, events such as the 1751 Lisbon earthquake, the country's occupation during the Napoleonic Wars, and the independence of Brazil 1822 led to a marked decay of Portugal's prior opulence. This was followed by the civil war between liberal constitutionalists and conservative absolutists over royal succession, which lasted from 1828 to 1834. The 1910 revolution deposed Portugal's centuries-old monarchy and established the democratic but unstable Portuguese First Republic, later being superseded by the Estado Novo authoritarian regime. Democracy was restored after the Carnation Revolution, ending the Portuguese colonial war shortly after independence was granted to almost all its overseas territories. The handover of Macau to China in 1999 marked the end of what can be considered one of the longest-lived colonial empires in history. Portugal has left a profound cultural, architectural, and linguistic influence across the globe. With a legacy of around 250 million Portuguese speakers around the world, it is a developed country with an advanced economy and high living standards. Additionally, it ranks up highly in peacefulness, democracy, press freedom, stability, social progress, prosperity, and English proficiency. A member of the United Nations, the European Union, the Schengen area, and the Council of Europe. Portugal was also one of the founding members of NATO, the Eurozone, the OECD, and the Community of Portuguese language countries. History. The early history of Portugal is shared with the rest of the Iberian Peninsula located in the southwestern Europe. The name of Portugal derives from the joint Romano-Celtic name Portugal. The region was settled by pre-Celts and Celts, giving origin to peoples like the Gallici, Lusitanians, Celtici, and Cynetes, also known as Coni. Visited by Polynesian, Carthaginians, and ancient Greeks, was incorporated in the Roman Republic. Dominion as Lusitania and parts of Galatia. After 41 BC until 298 AD, the region of present-day Portugal was inhabited by Neanderthals and then by Homo sapiens who roamed the borderless region of the northern Iberian Peninsula. These were subsistence societies, and although they did not establish prosperous settlements, they did from organized societies. Neolithic Portugal experimented with domestication of herding animals, the rising of some cereal crops, and fluvial or marine fishing. Romans first invaded the Iberian Peninsula in 219 BC. The Carthaginians roamed at first sea, and the Punic Wars were expelled from their coastal colonies. During the last days of Julius Caesar, almost the entire peninsula was annexed to the Roman Republic. The Roman conquest of what is now part of Portugal took almost 200 years and took many lives of the young soldiers and the lives of those who were sentenced to a certain death in the slave mines. When not sold as slaves to other parts of the empire, it suffered a severe setback in 155 BC when a rebellion began in the north. The Lusitanians and other native tribes under the leadership of Furitos wrested control of all western Iberia. In the early 5th century, Germanic tribes, namely the Suebi and the Vandals, Sli and Hastini, together with their allies, the Sarmatians and Alans, invaded the Iberian Peninsula, where they ruled from their kingdom. The kingdom of the Suebi was the Germanic post-Roman kingdom, established in the former Roman provinces of Galatia, Lusitania. 5th century vestiges of Alan settlements were found in Alenquer from the Old Germanic Alenquer Temple of the Alans, Coimbra and Lisbon. In 1383, John I of Castile, husband of Beatrix of Portugal and son-in-law of Ferdinand I of Portugal, claimed the throne of Portugal. A faction of petty noblemen and commoners, led by John of Aviz, later King John I of Portugal, and commanded by General Nuno Alvarez Pereira, defeated in the Castilian in the Battle of Aljubarrota. With this battle, the House of Aviz became the ruling House of Portugal. The Queen Consort of Portugal, Archduchess Maria Anna of Austria, was born of Carvalho or Melo, and after his first wife died, she arranged the widowed Carvalho and Melo's second marriage to the daughter of the Austrian field marshal Leopold Joseph, Count von Daun. King John V, however, was not pleased and recalled Carvalho Melo to Portugal in 1749. John V died the following year, and his son Joseph I was crowned In contrast to his father, Joseph I was fond of Carvalho or Melo, and with the Queen Mother's approval, he appointed Carvalho or Melo as Minister of Foreign Affairs. As the king's confidence in Carvalho and Melo increased, the king entrusted him with more control of the state. By 1755, Sebastião Jorge de Carvalho and Melo was made prime minister. Impressed by British economic success that he had witnessed from his time as an ambassador, he successfully implemented similar economic policies in Portugal. He abolished slavery in mainland Portugal and in the Portuguese colonies in India, reorganized the army and the navy, restructured at the University of Coimbra, and added legal discrimination against different Christian sects in Portugal by abolishing the distinction between old and new Christians. Queen Maria II, or Mary II, and King Ferdinand II's son, King Pedro V, or Peter V, modernized the country during his short reign. Under his reign, roads, telegraphs, and railways were constructed, and improvements in public health advanced. His popularity increased when, during the cholera outbreak, he visited hospitals, handing out gifts and comforting the sick. Pedro's reign was short as he died of cholera in 1861 after a series of deaths in the royal family, including his two brothers, Infants Fernando and Infants Joao, Duke of Beja, and his wife, Stephanie of Hohenzollern-Sigmaringen. Pedro, not having children, his brother Louis I of Portugal, and ascended the throne and continued his modernization. The Portuguese government and army resisted the decolonization of its overseas territories until April 1974, when a left-wing military coup in Lisbon, known as the Carnation Revolution, led the way for the independence of the overseas territories in Africa and Asia, as well as for the restoration of democracy after 2 years of a transitional period known as Processo Revolucionário and Curso, or PREC. This period was characterized by social turmoil and power disputes between left and right-wing political forces. By the summer of 1975, the tension between them was so high that the country was on the verge of civil war. The forces connected to the extreme left wing launched a further coup dated on 25 of November, but the Group of Nine, a moderate military faction, immediately initiated a counter-coup. The main episode of this confrontation was the successful assault on the barracks of the left-wing dominated military police regiments by the moderate forces of the Commando regiment, resulting in 3 soldiers killed in action. The Group of Nine emerged victorious, thus preventing the establishment of communist state in Portugal and ending the period of political instability in the country. The retreat from the overseas territories and the acceptance of its independence, summoned by Portuguese, had representative for overseas negotiations, which would create independent states in 1975, prompted a mass exodus of Portuguese citizens from Portugal's African territories, mostly from Portuguese Angola and Mozambique. Economy. Portugal is developed and a high-income country, with a GDP per capita of 74% of the EU 27 average in 2021, a decrease from 76% in 2012, and a XDI of 0.864, the 38th highest in 2020. By the end of 2021, Portugal's GDP was $36,381 per capita, and according to OECD's report, the national currency of Portugal is the euro, which replaced the Portuguese escudo, and the country was one of the original member states of the Eurozone. Portugal's central bank is the Banco de Portugal, an integral part of the European system of central banks. Most industry, businesses, and financial institutions are concentrated in the Lisbon and Porto metropolitan area. The Setúbal, Aveiro, Braga, Coimbra, Leiria, and Faro districts are the biggest economic centers outside these two main areas. According to World Travel Awards, Portugal was Europe's leading golf destination in 2012 and 2013. Since the Carnation Revolution of 1974, which culminated in the end of one of Portugal's most notable phases of economic expansion that started in the 1960s, a significant change has occurred in the nation's annual economic growth. After the turmoil of the 1974 revolution and the PREC period, Portugal tried to adapt to a changing modern global economy, a process that continues in 2013. Since the 1990s, Portugal's public consumption-based economic development model has been slowly changing to a system that is focused on exports, private investment, and the development of the high-tech sector. Consequently, business services have overtaken more traditional industries such as textiles, clothing, footwear, and cork. Portugal is the world's leading cork producer, wood products, and beverages. In the second decade of the 21st century, the Portuguese economy suffered its most severe recession since the 1970s, resulting in the country having to be bailed out by the European Commission, European Central Bank, and International Monetary Fund, or IMF. The bailout agreed to in 2011 required Portugal to enter into a range of austerity measures in exchange for funding support of 78 billion euro. In May 2014, the country exited the bailout but reaffirms its commitment to maintaining its reforms momentum. At the time of exiting the bailout, the economy had contracted by 0.7% in the first quarter of 2014. However, unemployment was still high, had fallen to 15.3%. The average salary in Portugal is 1,011 euro per month, excluding self-employed individuals, and the minimum wage, which is regulated by law, is 705 per month, paid 14 times per annum as of 2022. The Global Competitiveness Report for 2019, published by the World Economic Forum, placed Portugal on the 34th position on the Economic Index. The Economist Intelligence Unit's Quality of the Life Index placed Portugal as the country with the 19th best quality of the life in the world of 2005, ahead of other economically and technologically advanced countries like France, Germany, the United Kingdom, and South Korea, but 9 places behind its sole neighbor, Spain. This is despite the fact that Portugal remains as one of the countries with the lowest per capita GDP in Western Europe. Major state-owned companies include Aguas de Portugal, Water, Caixa Geral de Depósitos, Banking, Comboios de Portugal, Railways, Companhia das Legueiras, Agriculture, and RTP or Media. Some former state-owned entities are managed by a state-run holding company, Parabolica, which is a shareholder of several public and private companies. Among former state-owned companies recently privatized are CTT of Postal Service and ANA Airports. Companies listed on Euronext Lisbon Stock Exchange like EDP, GLP, Jeronimo, Martin, Mota and Gil, Novabase, Smartpho, Portugal, Supercell, Portugal Telecom, and Soanai are amongst the largest corporations of Portugal by number of employees. Net income for international market share, the Euronext Lisbon is the major stock exchange of Portugal and is part of the NYSE Euronext, the first global stock exchange. The PSI 20 is Portugal's most selective and widely known stock index. The International Monetary Fund issued an update report on the economy of Portugal in late June 2011, with a strong near-term outlook and increase in investment and export over previous years. Because of a surplus in 2016, the country was no longer bound by the excessive deficit procedure which had been implemented during an early financial crisis. The banking system was more stable, although there were still non-performing loans and corporate debt. The IMF recommended working on solving that problem for Portugal to be able to attract more private investment. Sustained strong growth together with continued public debt reduction would reduce vulnerabilities arising from high indebtedness, particularly where monetary accommodation is reduced. The OECD economic reports in 2018 show recovery, albeit slow, and Portugal growth prospects continue positive for 2020. Okay guys, just it about Portugal. Thank you for watching. See you soon in another video. Bye.